Hello everyone, this is Ibrahim and we're still doing the Learn Flutter videos. In the past video, we've actually done this effect where you get to change different blood type groups and see the corresponding blood type group. And then we've also added this scrolling effect to the mix where you get to see more elements than visible on the screen by scrolling through them. So I think we're done with this screen. In order to achieve the rest of the, like if you want to achieve the exact design we currently have here, you could have a stacked widget. And in that stacked widget, you could have two elements. One would be the text and the other one would be row. And this row would actually have an icon and the text, whatever you like. And you could actually have this on pressed on tap or inkwell widget covering these elements, and on click or on tap the page view would actually change. We've actually seen how to control the page view slider from an external element like a button or whatever. We've actually seen that in the onboarding screen that we've implemented. Anyways, that's that. So the next step would be to actually implement this effect right here. So let's start with these, okay? I'll just prep a bit of data. Or you know what, I don't think we have to, at least not yet. So because we currently have a donor and I have a recipient, so it's best to have those two because they share certain characteristics and they are the entities in charge interacting with the application. So it's best to have those in something called a model. So the model would represent them. It's almost like a class. Of course, you can avoid or you don't have to implement a class, but it's better to have a good practice like an object-oriented methodology in the implementation. So anyways, enough for that talk. So the first thing we need to do is add a models folder. So let's add a new folder. Let's call this models. Okay, and in here we will have donor.dot. And in the donor.dot we will add the necessary information. So this is a class that represents the donor. So we need to import the package stuff that we usually deal with. So package material, and then we need to define the class. So the class of this would be called the donor, and this will take in its properties. We have an integer, say we need the user ID, for example, user ID, and we also need an ID, and we need a string of blood group. We'll store it in a string character, and we also need because it's a character and a symbol, so you have an O plus or O minus, so it's better to have that as a string rather than a character. And then we currently have a score as well. So the reason I added all this information in is because if you have noticed, so the user ID is basically my logic behind this is, let me open up Paint. So we have a user that uses the system. So this user could be a donor, could be a recipient. It doesn't matter. So whichever, right? So they both share similar characteristics. So this is the user. This could be the recipient. That looks like whatever it is. I know it doesn't look the best, but you get the gist of this. And then we got a donor. So both share similar characteristics like the phone number, the score. So the more you donate, the higher your score. So the score is limited, is only private to this guy, to the donor. So if you're a recipient, you don't need the score. You need something called pins, the number of pins you need. You need blood pins. So you have a number of pins that you require, and the more the donor as he donates, he gets a score. However, both have an email, both have a phone number, and hence I've added the user ID here. Is basically just this the user ID is actually here, so it's a foreign key to here and to here. So that's my logic behind this. Anyway, so we could have these final and we can't just stop right here. This is the class. We need the constructor. So the constructor would be would take in the default value for those properties that we've actually just set. So first of all, so the default for user ID is the value passed in, and the default for ID is the value passed in, and the blood group as well, and this dot score. So so it's like if you create a constructor, you do it like this. So 1 for the user ID, for example, and then 3 for the ID of the donor, and then a plus like that, and then maybe 3. So that's how you create an object for donor, and that's what the constructor does for us. So it's like you so the default values are the ones you pass in. So these values are the ones you get from here, right here. So and then so all of these are actually required. So we just add the @required decorator in there. So you just add the @required like so, and there we have it. So we're done with the class. Now we just need to import it. We need to, so the next step would be, now that we have the donor, let's create a screen. Okay, so in widgets we have a donor, and we currently have the blood selector. Let's create a new screen. Let's call this, I don't know, donor dash. I think donor dash is pretty good, the dashboard. So donor dash. As always, we need to do the necessary imports, and of course it's likely to be a stateful widget. So let's start off with the stateful widget. There we have it. So let's call this donor dash, and let's fill in the information. So this would be a scaffold, and we need to have the body. So there's the body, and then in the body we could have container, and there we have it. And the container would have a child, and since we have elements one on top of the other, we would just take in a column. Children would be a type of widget, and it's a list. It's a list of widgets. There we have it. And then we just fill in the information we need. So what we need is we need this badge. So let's fill in the information. So text badge, and then we also need to have text cards. I think it's cards. There is a card widget that we will be using, but I just want to like outline the information that we will be displaying on the screen. And then people that need help, you'd add text. Let's call it a caption, and let's reformat this. So we have a scaffold. Inside it we have a body container, and inside of the container we have a column, and in the column we have the 3 elements that we want to display. So it's more like just an outline of the widgets that we want to work with. Awesome. So now we just need to let main know that we want to work with donor dash as the first screen. So let's do the necessary imports as always. So dot widgets, and then we need to go for donor and then donor dash. And then instead of us calling blood selector, let's call donor dash. If we try to save, we should be, there we have it. So we have the badge, the caption, and the cards. Now we'll just work on each and every one. Nice. So the first thing we need to do is to create, for the cards, there is a card widget that we can use. So we should go on with that. Alright, so let's get this one out of the way. Let's have this being card. So card takes in a child, a single child. And what we could do is, because we want to style, let's have this child be a container. And the child of the container, we want it to be a column, because we want to stack a few elements on top of the other. So we currently have a few elements in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 elements be stacked inside of the card. So let's have the column right here, and then we have the children. And inside of the children, we want to have text. We wanted the text be, let's call it Ibrahim for the first text, and the second text would be the name. That's the name, and then we would have age, probably age. Do we have an age here? Yeah, we have the age and condition. So let's call this 32, and then we would have, say, condition. Let's call it condition, and then we would have text of donations. Let's call it progress. No, fills. Let's call it fills. And then we also have the text center. Let's call it donation center. If we try to save, now we have that card in place. Sweet. So we have this card here. So there is this effect that you might be able to see. There is this tiny effect here, but we of course will be adding more aesthetics to this. You know what? We could just do it right now, right? So we currently have the card, so we could give it a color. So this takes in a color like so, and colors, or we could give it a theme color better. It's better that way. Let's give it a column here, and then we could go theme of context, and then we can give it like the primary light color, color light, and then because it's just taking part of the screen, we want to fill the full screen. Let's give it a width of the way to fill up the full screen, you just go double dot infinity, and then this should be a child. Okay, let's save it. And there we have it. So there's this card here that with the necessary information, and then what we need to do is probably add a bit of styling to. So we have the condition here. So the condition has to be bolded. So the condition, we want to add a bit of styling. So style, this would be text style, and then this takes in the font weight like so, and then we could add, this takes in a font weight dot bold, and then maybe we could add a bit of sizing to it. Let's see how this looks like. Okay, so it needs a bit of size, so we could go font size of 18. Let's see how this looks like. Yeah, that's not bad. So we have that in place, and the other thing we need to do is for the fills is supposed to be something like, a circular progressive kind of thing that we will be doing this in its own separate video. It's very simple though, it's not going to be a long video. So, and then we need just to add a bit of bolding to that, to the text. So we also need to have a bit of styling to that. Maybe we could add an icon too. So let me do that. So we have a text sent to donation. So what we could do here is that we could have a row instead of a text. So let's have a row. Let's wrap this with a row. So we have text, and then we could have also an icon. So the way we use an icon is just simply do the icon widget, use the icon widget, and in it you just specify icons, dots, and then the icons you need. So what we need is something called, I think, location or GPS. Location, I think location on. Yeah, it's highlighted, and then we could give it a color, and then we could go theme of context, and then we could give it maybe a dark primary color. We want it to stand out from the background. There we go. And then we need to add a comma. Let's see how this would look like. Nice. So it's pulling to the side, so let's wrap this with center. So row, let's wrap it with center, and there we have some beautiful Odin. Oh, okay. All right. We need to wrap this with center. So, but we need to wrap the ones on top as well. Okay. All right, but before we do that, let me just fix. We will fix this. Let's just, before I forget, we need to do something before we can end this video. I don't want it to be a lengthy video, so I'm trying my best to give as much information as I can in a short period of time. So we also need. So we added a donor model, and then because this information we're displaying is actually related to recipients, so not the donors. So for the donor, we only need to display the badge information, but for these, we need the recipients. So let's create a model called recipients. New file. Oops. Recipients.dart. Let's call it recipient better. It's not recipients. As always, do the necessary imports. So material Flutter. And then let's call this just like we've done. Oops. So this is the class, and the class takes in, and there are a few parameters we need, like the age, the donation center, the pins, and so on. So I think I should write them down on paper so that it's more like a schema design, so that I'll be more than confident in writing them down. Okay, so I've actually done them. So we have the name, the age, the gender, the condition, the donation center, the blood group needed, the pins obtained, story, and ID. And all this information. So we could also add the user ID in the mix. So I forgot to add that one. So enter your user ID, and then we need to set it as required as well. Required the user ID. Format this. Okay, final. Oops, it's not a comma. I got used to the comma that Anyway, so these are the recipients. Now let's go back to our main screen. All right, so let's finalize this card and wrap up this video. I don't want it to get lengthy. I mean, it's already lengthy, but I don't want it to extend to even more lengthy video. Anyway, so in order for us to fix this one, where we have this, so everything is actually centered except for this one is going like sideways. So I've added a center here, but since it's a row, we need to add what do we call the main axis alignment. So main axis alignment, the center, and there we have it. So when it comes to rows and columns, we actually need to specify where the element sits in that row, or where it's aligned within that row. So everything is actually centered, and so that's that. Anyways, so we need to add a bit of padding. It's too close to the edges. So where's this container? We could add a bit of padding here. So edge insets all. We could give it a value of say 15. 15 is pretty good. Yeah, that's a bit of padding. We added it to the main container, but we will work with this one. What I meant to do, yeah, let me add a bit of padding to this container as well within the card. So nice. So this is what we're looking for. And that's it. So to end this video, before we really end this video, so we have this card with all these options that we currently have. We can have this in its own set of in its own class, more like a what do you call it? Let's call it a list, not a list, but more like a recipient list kind of class. So we could do this in its own class, and we should do it in the next videos, in the next set of videos. But yeah, I think we should. I think this is enough for this video. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good day.